Back in the gun room today. Gonna make a kind of a part 2 video for the Umarex Notos bottle conversion. And I showed you in the last video how to install this kind of a bolt-on kit from Airgun Archery Fun out of Canada. And in this video we're going to show you how to tune it. Let me get a few things ready and move the camera and we'll start. Alright, so the only thing we're going to need for this is a 10mm wrench, a 2.5mm Allen wrench, and the little cap that came with the regulator. I told you this would be important and kind of handy for some of this stuff. We're going to use it right now. The first thing we're going to do is take the bottle off of this. Any day now. There we go. And I've already done this, but loosen this nut up right here with your 10mm wrench, and then turn this Allen screw in about a half a turn. It doesn't take much, but turn it in about a half a turn. And then when you get done, just snug this nut up. Doesn't need to be tight. Just kind of put a little pressure on it, right? I don't even want mine tight because I want to be able to put my Allen wrench in there and move it without having to loosen that nut every time. But I don't want that Allen wrench, that screw, which is the valve adjustment, the regulator adjustment. I don't want that thing loose. So I turn that in clockwise, right? And then I'm going to take this. This is going to act as our bottle. And we're going to screw that down there. It doesn't even need to be crazy tight. It just needs to be hand tight. That's it. Just like that. And hook the air tank up to it. And if you haven't looked at this thing yet, this doesn't read in PSI or bar. It reads in MPa. And I've already tuned this thing once and kind of got some baseline where I want to be with this thing. And this one is going to be our basically our bottle pressure, so the pressure in this cap. And this one is fixing to be our regulated pressure, and I want this thing to be at about 17.5 MPa. And it's going to be hard for you to see in here, but anyway, I'm going to set that between 15 and 20, and that's 17.5. That's where I got the most power out of this thing at, just by taking the stock off and cranking the hammer spring all the way in as far as it would go, and then turning this pressure up until it reached its maximum velocity over chronograph. Alright, and I loaded what pressure it was at and work with it from there. So let's see if this thing will fill. Always cock the gun and put the safety on when you're filling from empty. We all should know that by now, over the several years that PCPs have been out, that they really don't want to fill with the bolt closed and the hammer not cocked. Let's see if we can't put a little pressure in here. There we go. It doesn't take much because this thing doesn't hold any air. It's very small. So we went right up. 30 MPa is 4,500 psi. So we're way up there we're plenty high enough on the pressure. You don't want to just barely put some air in this thing. You want to fill this thing up a little bit, because as you're doing your testing and stuff, if that thing drops down below your regulated pressure every time and you don't notice it, you'd be wasting a lot of time adjusting this regulator. When you fill the gun back up, the regulator will go right on up there to 3,000 psi or higher. And so you want to make sure this has got enough for the regulator to actually start working, right? So with this valve on my tank open, this thing is reading just under 10 MPa. Looks like it's time for an O-ring in my Foster fitting. So we're going to take this regulator and turn it counterclockwise very, very slowly. That pressure is going to come up kind of fast. Can you see the gauge moving? We are at 15. My O-ring's getting ready to give out on me and my Foster fitting. Kind of scared me a little bit. That O-ring's like me, old and tired and doesn't want to work anymore. It's been in there for a few years. Alright. Right there, I am just about 17.5 MPa. And that's it. That's all the more there is to it. That nut got a little bit loose as I was backing that screw out, so I'm going to just give it a little bitty snug. I don't want it tight. And that's it. I don't know if you can see that or not in the camera. That is pretty close to 17.5 MPa, and that's where I got maximum power out of it before. So we'll close the tank, open the bleeder. Now, this thing's got pressure in it, right? And we don't want any pressure in it. But since it doesn't hold very much air, all we have to do now is shoot the gun a few times and bleed the air pressure off. And I can take this off and put the bottle back on. And I did not waste a whole bottle worth of air doing it. Take the safety off and dry fire it a couple times. And do a couple times into the camera so you can see the pressure in the gauge going down. Alright, watch that one right there. See that? That little cap, the plenum and the regulator itself holds a little bit of air. I know there really isn't any plenum on this gun. It's all inside the valve. There's already one or two people, I think, that are making a plenum kit for this. Looks pretty simple, pretty straightforward to put on. I do believe you could put it on and then put this regulated valve on after that, and then put a bottle on. I'm actually impressed with how many shots it takes to shoot this thing down. Imagine if you had the bottle on it. I showed you in the last video that there's actually a way to take the trigger frame off the housing, and there's a screw up under there that you can put a flathead screwdriver in and open it, and that'll bleed all the air out of the gun. I'm just trying not to take the trigger assembly off anymore if I don't have to. Almost out of air. There it went. You hear that little dump at the end? It went. Yep. That means she's out of air. So now I can take this cap off. This is a really good idea when you're first setting one of these up and tuning the gun. You can leave that thing hooked up and shoot pellets over a chronograph with it tethered to a tank and that little cap on there. And when you get it tuned to the maximum velocity with the hammer spring turned all the way in, if you back the hammer spring out, it will actually slow the pellet down a little bit, which is, you know, not what these did with the factory regulator on them. The regulator is set kind of low, so the hammer spring was opening the valve up as far as it could possibly open it. Even with the setting, the adjustment backed all the way out, it was still opening it really, really far. So with the bottle put on this thing and snugged up, it's only hand tight. We're gonna put my fitting back on here. I'm trying to look inside there and see if I can see the O-ring. It looks like it's got some damage to it, so it's probably time for a new one. Yeah, it doesn't seem like it's gripping it very good anymore. It'll be alright for right now. Cock the gun again, put the safety on, close the bleeder, and open the tank really slow. I just filled my tank, so it's got a little over 4,000 psi in it. And if you open that valve very fast, it'll put the air in there really fast. When they're empty, I like to do this kind of slow, because if you ever filled one of these things before, you know that the bottle will get kind of warm as the air pressure comes up. And if that air is hot enough to actually make this bottle warm, it is not doing the O-rings in the middle of this thing any good either. That air is really hot inside there. As the pressure comes up, it kind of seems to fill a little faster and a little faster. And that's that. That's all the air my tank's got in it. It looks like about 25 MPa. I don't know what that converts to, but I know 30 MPa is 4,500 psi, or close enough. So there it is. That's how you do it. That's how you tune this thing. Is put the little cap on there when you first start off, and I turn my adjustment screw in just a little bit so that I know that I'm below what I want to be at, because you can adjust this thing counterclockwise to raise the pressure while the regulator's under pressure. If you try to lower the pressure, turn it clockwise instead of counterclockwise, you will mess the valve up in there. You'll be rebuilding your regulator. They won't put up with it. So you have to start off with the air pressure, with the regulator set really low, and you can raise the pressure to where you want it to, and without hurting the valve. That's it. That's how I done it. This thing should be right around 22 foot-pounds of energy, just like it is, with it set right there. And I know everybody's anxious to go shoot them right away, but the smart thing to do is to note where the tank pressure is on this valve, on this gauge, and let it sit overnight. I just filled it. The bottle's hot. It's going to drop some pressure. Let it sit overnight. See, did it go down 100 or 2 or whatever, 10 or so MPa, or did it lose all the air? That way you know if you have a leak without having to put soapy water all over this thing. That's it. We adjusted it, and now we're going to put the scope back on it and get it sighted in, and we'll call this part 2 to the Notos bottle, adjusting the regulator.